What's the most pain you've ever been in? Was in a 100 car pileup when I was a teenager. I sat mashed against a dashboard for almost 5 hours with 4 broken ribs while continually being jostled by more cars getting involved in the accident. It was pure heck. According to the reports it was only 76 vehicles. According to the reports it was only 76 vehicles. Only 76 vehicles. Piggyback ride gone wrong. My ear was hanging off. Getting stitched up was a freaking picnic. When I was skiing I got hit from the side and dislocated my knee. Not just a slight dislocation, but my leg was backwards below my knee. The ski popped off, but it still was very strange looking down to see the back of my ski boot. So, obviously ski patrol comes by after about 5-10 minutes. At this point, I'm not in a whole lot of pain because the adrenaline is pumping and it's also pretty cold. I'm expecting a ride down to the hospital to fix everything. Instead, she takes off her mitten and hands it to me. I could give you anesthetic, but in reality it wouldn't do anything. You'd still feel this. Bite down on the mitten. I'll go on the count of 3. 1, 2. She pulls my leg down, twists it 180 degrees, and then puts it back in. Seriously, I saw the color purple for about 90 seconds. I cannot fathom how much pain that was. That took the cake. TLDR. Full knee dislocation fixed on slope of mountain with no anesthetic. I could give you anesthetic, but in reality it wouldn't do anything. You'd still feel this. Thank you for your opinion. I'll be taking those anesthetics now, please. Messing around with a fishing rod in my friend's back garden when I was a kid. He swings the line back pretending to cast. Fish hook into my eye. I have an ex-boyfriend named Dave who likes carrots and got a bungee cord hook in his eye. Weird coincidence. Bee stung me in the nutsack when I was 12. I'm an Irish kid that's whiter than sour cream, and I rarely spend time out in the sun. I have 2 skin tones, white and burned. So, when I went to Hawaii, I got burned badly. It was exacerbated by the fact that I neglected to put on sunscreen, and I was in the sun for about 3 hours in the late spring. I got sun poisoning. Imagine thousands of fire ants biting you underneath your skin for 36 hours, and there is nothing you can do. I weighed about in agony for a whole day, popping Benadryl and rubbing aloe vera all over myself. I was hallucinating at one point, and I was not thinking rationally. I attempted suicide at one point, just for pain relief. I have yet to spend time in the sun with my shirt off since the incident. Root canal with no anesthesia. I blacked out from the pain about 30 minutes into the procedure. Ovarian cyst. Seriously, some of the worst pain of my life. I could barely walk. My sister had one of those. She was in such bad pain that at first they thought it was her appendix. The cyst burst a few days later and hurt so bad she had to go back to the hospital and was given codeine. I'm on my 13th stone in 7 years. That is worse than delivering my son naturally. Kidney stones are horrid. The last time I passed a kidney stone in the air, I caught it in the strainer that they give you. It was so big, the nurse had to take it around the ear and show her colleagues. I hadn't pooped in a week. An entire week. I ate like a dirty monster, hoping that lots of water and fiber would help me have to go. But no. Days went by and I didn't poop. I weighed myself. I had gained 2 pounds from this crap. But I wasn't feeling bloated, just irritable. I took a laxative last night. This morning I experienced the worst pain a butthole should ever feel, and I've tried anal. I was surprised my toilet could flush so much of my boom boom. And I'm still going. As in, I'm on the toilet and typing this. I probably should have posted on a throwaway. I got hit in the face with a baseball going about 95 miles per hour. Shattered my nose and split my lip. I had to get a total of 14 stitches on the bridge of my nose and my lip. Holy frick balls. Gallstones. The pain from my worst episode lasted for over 36 hours. I couldn't sleep, eat, or even lie down. I spent all that time struggling to breathe and alternating between my couch and my bed in search for some place to grant some form of relief from the pain. It was the most intense and strange pain I have ever felt. I could barely move at the same time as I couldn't remain still. I still don't really understand why I kept insisting on moving around. but my doctor that finally gave me the correct diagnosis said it was quite common to feel that way when it came to gallstones. Tattoo on my back running down my spine. I don't give a crap if it fades. I will never get it touched up. It's a shooting pain that pulses up your entire back. Also, urinary tract infection. You don't know pain until you've peed blood. It makes you burn and constantly feel like you have to go, even when empty. My sister calls them bushfires. Air trapped in my abdomen after a surgery. I was walking back to my place drunk one really cold winter night and decided it would be best to run the rest of the way there to warm me up. Naturally, I tripped and fell onto a gravelly pathway on both hands and my hip. I got back, wrapped up my hands and passed out. The next morning I went to the clinic to get it patched up and both hands were filled with tiny rocks and crap which had scabbed over embedded themselves deep into my hand. I had to watch the nurse pick away at my skin and scabs and into the flesh of my hands to get each little freaking rock out. I sat there for about an hour grimacing and yelping. It was torture. Just thinking about it makes me cringe. Having a sharp metal instrument poking into your flesh while you are watching it is the worst. I still have a huge scar on my hip and indentations in both hands to this day. Being on fire for half a minute sucked. I had food poisoning from Taco Bell a couple of years ago. It was a lot more unpleasant than I would have guessed food poisoning would be. Actively painful, and not just I feel really sick. I hear it's nothing compared to kidney stones though. LOL, I work at Taco Bell. Kidney stones are like a combination of a Charlie horse in your lower back on one side puking not being able to pee, or crap, in my case. So not as much as a comparison of which is worse. Food poisoning is just different. Yeah, I've got kidney sponge disease, also sometimes called kidney stone disease. I've had 19 stones since I was 16. I am now 25. The worst was one that got stuck. Caused my kidney to swell and require emergency surgery. The stone was too big to be grabbed by the little claw they use, so they had to push it back into my kidney to break it up with sound waves. 2 full weeks in the hospital. So much dilaudid though, so I didn't mind. Burst appendix and subsequent botched operation. The horror. Just to let you know, the surgeon is dead. I used to get migraines. At their worst I would throw up everything I ate. And sometimes I would go to the emergency room for shots that would knock me out. I hear this doesn't even compare to kidney stones or cluster headaches though. A friend of mine had kidney stones as well, but his were recurring. He had 6 or 7 over the course of 1-2 years. Migraines for me too. During a bad one I want nothing more than for someone to come and take my head away. My C-section after the epidural wore off. A friend of mine had a C-section without an anesthetic. The epidural didn't work, and she didn't want it under because she wanted to experience the birth. Needless to say, it nearly killed her. Believe it or not, menstrual cramps. Before I got put on birth control, cramps were pretty miserable for me. I had to be taken out of school several times because I was in too much pain to concentrate. But there was one particular time, my family and I were on vacation in Pensacola. No beach for me, obviously, and our first full day there, I woke up in pretty miserable pain. Whatever, I laid around in pajamas and popped some of my prescription strength pain pills, prescribed specifically for this purpose. Instead of becoming semi-tolerable, they just got worse, and worse, and worse. I know it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but it got to the point where I was lying on the couch, literally writhing in pain, tears streaming down my face, and I told my mother that if she were to put a bullet in my head, it would be a welcome reprieve. I couldn't stay quiet or still for any amount of time. The pain was just excruciating. It only lasted for that one day, but it went on for hours and made me think I was dying. I got polyed, where you get grabbed by 2 people, your legs held open and get run into a metal pole. Decayed wisdom tooth. The sharp pain would come out of nowhere and almost make my knees buckle. It's unfortunate this is so low. I once had a heavy gauge wire in one end of my toe and out the other. Oddly quite bearable except when I accidentally banged it against my shin when walking. It doesn't compare to a decayed wisdom tooth. I was minding my own business 1 minute and writhing in agony crying the next. About the only time in my adult life I've done so from pain. Toss up between Dry socket post wisdom tooth removal surgery. Perforated eardrum during raging ear infection. Oh god. Dry sockets. I've given birth and shattered my kneecap, but dry sockets still ranks up there. I got shot in the mouth. Luckily it just knocked out majority of my teeth and passed out my other cheek. I separated my pubis symphysis, which is essentially what happens to women when their hips spread to birth a child. I'm a dude and it happened when I did the splits in one quick motion while playing hockey. Felt like an axe to the crotch. Childbirth, like an axe to the crotch. Spinal tap. Nurse doctor repeatedly hit nerves and yelled at me to stop moving or I would be paralyzed for life. Was the most pain imaginable for a very short time. Wife could hear me screaming from other end of hospital. I also have had that done over a dozen times now. It is extremely painful, especially when the staff is lacking in skills. Almost cut my thumb completely off while working on a garage door spring. The spring broke, sliced through my thumb and forearm. The forearm wound was about 6 inches long, down to the bone. My thumb was basically held onto my hand via the patch of skin between the thumb and the pointer finger. No one was home at the time, out in the country. I bled out in my driveway waiting for the rescue squad. Honestly, the pain during the even was nothing compared to the pain of being stitched up. I had to stay awake through the multi-hour ordeal so that they could save as many tendons and ligaments as possible. Syringe in my fingertips. I passed out from the pain. I got my hand caught in an electric pizza dough roller, broke 4 of my fingers and popped the bone through my middle finger. Thing is, it didn't hurt until they got my hand out of the machine. The second I got free from the rollers, I was hit with so much pain, I passed out. My shoulder used to dislocate when I did a bench press. Had a knee dislocate once. No arrow jokes please. I don't actually remember falling to the floor. One moment I was moving a sofa ND, the next I was lying on the floor swearing. Scared the crap out of my friend. I half killed my big toenail running a marathon. Since it was only half dead, it had to be pulled off. When they put the bandage on, they did it incorrectly. The gauze of the bandage had adhered itself through dried blood to my newly exposed nail bed. I had to change the bandage out to prevent infection. Now I know why they used to torture people by running bamboo shoots up their nails. I remember screaming multiple times. It took over an hour to get it off. I did this in my house without any anesthetic. I couldn't drive myself to an because the wound was exposed on my driving foot, and it was dripping blood. I thought about calling an ambulance but was worried about the cost. Frick wherever you live for that ambulance not being free. I'm surprised no one has said treading on a Lego brick. Worst pain I had was when my second molar was pushing through and the last of the paracetamol only worked for an hour and it wore off during sleepy times, so I couldn't go to sleep for another 3 hours in agony. Toothaches are the worst as you can't really put it into a position where it isn't active, unlike a broken arm. Crazy migraines. I got several of them over a couple of years in my early teens. They would start with no pain or anything, just something slightly different about my vision. Soon there would be a very small speck somewhere in my vision, and it would begin to pulsate with light and have a shimmering multicolored kind of appearance. Not that it was something I could directly focus on and really see, because it moved with my vision. At that point, I knew the crap was about to go down. Still no pain at this point, but the shimmering speck would grow, sometimes with others appearing, and they'd gradually fill most of my vision. Then was the craziest pain I've ever felt, which lasted for I don't know how long. I couldn't do anything except roll around. I would not be able to even sit up and swallow some painkillers. I'd come out of the stupor eventually, sometimes a few days later. Hope I've seen the last of that little speck. I fell down a hill and shattered my collarbone into dust. Then I had to hop a 4-foot fence to get into my yard to get help. I felt like I was on fire and my whole upper body turned black and blue. Back in 2001 I was at the Canadian Jamboree in Pay. I was sleeping on a picnic table while chicken was being boiled in a pot for supper on a camp stove. Someone went to lift it up with a pot lifter when it slipped and the boiling water slipped and fell onto my legs and I received second-degree burns and had to take a train ride back to London, Ontario. I'm a slightly hairy guy, so for me the worst part was when I had to go to the hospital for a follow-up and they had to debride the burns. Every time she wiped it with what felt like steel wool to me, she was ripping out my leg hair and chunks of skin. Worst pain I've ever felt. Post-eye surgery, there is silicone fluid in my eye, which is thicker than the normal goop in your eye and doesn't drain out. So when my body produced more vitreous fluid, the silicone oil wasn't replaced and the pressure in my eye was 2-3 times what it should be. Felt like my eyeball was going to pop. My grandfather's eye popped out once. He pushed it back in. Broke my leg. The pain was so intense I didn't even fully comprehend it. I was just screaming uncontrollably. But it was worse when they put my cast on. The nurse doing it was extremely grumpy and kept jerking my leg around, not caring about my pain at all. I don't actually remember this, luckily, but apparently I passed out and kept screaming while unconscious. Thought I pulled a muscle during fricking. I had actually collapsed a lung. Although painful itself, putting the chest tube in was actually much more painful. Testicular torsion. That or when I ripped out my dong piercing. This made me sharply inhale and my legs started doing weird crap. When I was 13 on an airplane and the pressure triggered something in my teeth and it was horrific pain. I had that once too, man. Felt bad. 5mm kidney stone. Had a hook on it that cut me up pretty good before snagging and holding on right above my pelvic bone. 2 weeks pre-surgery as the doctor was wanting to let it pass. Then another week and a half of pre-coagulated blood after the surgery. It changes your whole pain scale when you feel something like that. Batting cage machine malfunctioned and the steel core rubber outside ball hit me in the right eye, breaking my bottom orbital bone and sinus wall bone, as well as giving me a nasty concussion and swelling so bad I couldn't see out of the other eye either. That was bad enough, but I was down in Florida on vacation on travel insurance. After the ambulance ride, they put me in a bed in the air. At this point, they said, "We have to wait until your insurance goes through before we can start any treatment or give any medication." This included pain medication, 8 hours sitting with 2 broken bones in my face, and a major concussion without pain medication because the American health system wanted to see payment before treatment. Had an accident and needed stitches on my nether region. I'm a girl. They had to put me under 3 times. The first shot didn't work and I could feel everything they were doing down there, screaming in pain. Second one only got me in a high state where faces looked distorted, still could feel everything. The third one did the trick and knocked me out. It's a tie between that and growing up in a country where medical advancements were, about a century behind. All throughout middle school, all my dental work was performed without anesthesia, fillings, extractions. I got checked from behind in hockey and compound fractured my arm trying to keep my head from hitting the boards. Like this video and this good boy will play you a nice song. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.